I just realized that I need to do my job and retweet something. Hello, everybody. Hi, welcome. Welcome. You have found yourself on Geekspace TV on this very lovely, what is Monday afternoon here out in wonderful Seattle. Welcome. I see some, what?
Sunny Seattle?
Sure, there is sun here when you see it. It's a miracle, and everybody is much happier. Oh, hello. Hi, Nate. I can see some names in chat. I see Jir, wonderful. Hello. And Alyssa Faye. And Paladin Hulk, thank you for being here. William TW, so good to see you. Oh, we get some doodlings on. Would love that very much. Iffy and Sal, hello. Hello. So, Trooper SJP, welcome. Step. Yeah, no, there's fun step jokes with my name. It's okay. Jumping Cactus, hey. Not much. It's been pretty chill today. You doodle now? Yep. Lots of doodling. Doodling. So today, I figured, continuing from the last episode and talking with Lauren about anatomy and drawing, and do some stuff and talk about what I do when I'm drawing people and how I kind of see shapes and how to make things simpler. This is not going to be, I'm not going to teach anatomy because I actually don't remember much. Besides maybe the name of a few bones and some muscles, but like, oh man, don't quiz me on this. Sorry, Eric Belts. Definitely failed that one, but it's okay. So that's something I recommend to definitely pick up. I'm gonna move this camera and maybe you'll see it. Is this little book called The Human Figure, Anatomy for Artists. It's by David K. Rubin. Huh?
Sorry.
Not ready for the camera?
Top down going on right now.
Great. Top down. Maybe you'll see it. It's right here. Inklings to the doodling. No, don't worry. That was like on the fly. It's fine. And I realized it was probably not the best way to do it. So The Human Figure Anatomy for Artists is one of my go-to reference books. I tend to find myself digging for that book every time to like go back and practice references, and it's great sketches. It goes through the human body proportions and then does very focused chapters on musculature, bones, and figures for hands, arms, face, etc., etc. It's great. I personally like it. I sometimes go back and practice. I've lost my copy recently, so I'm probably going to pick it up from Amazon again very soon. Anatomy, that's the squishy, tasty parts inside the things you eat. Yes, that is true. That is true. Evening Space Jam, thank you for joining. Son of Ink. Not sure if lewd or cannibalistic. It gets a little fuzzy, doesn't it? Fuzzy or bloody. Love Song for Cats, thank you. It's a very delightful name you have. Magic Myth Mayhem, good to see you. Yes, please retweet. It'll help so much. Also just hang out and chat and just talk to, like, tell people about cool things, and just hanging out in chat's wonderful. I miss talking to all of you. Hi, Grinny. Hi, Theater Nerd. Grimlost, welcome. The only option is loot or cannibalism. I don't know. Okay, cool. Generally, there's a lot. We'll start with the human figure. We all know. We'll start with, here is the head. We have a head shape. Trying to think of other facts. I think it's commonly said that figures are always like 7 to 6 head tall, blah 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 proportions, but I think that is very restrictive, if you will, about it's a restrictive rule to have when you go on to create characters and to draw people. Because when you're doing a life drawing, you don't actually sit there with your pen and measure exactly how many heads the model is. Even when drawing from reference, a lot of the measurements becomes different points of the painting and the composition as a whole. So we're not going to do the whole head stacking snowman thing and measure this person properly. So we start with the head. You start a head. I don't usually do a circle because it's limiting, but sometimes you can always start here with a circle, which is like the upper part of the skull, and usually keep in mind that this circle isn't just where the face goes. That circle is actually in reference to the back of your skull. Or this is what I usually use it for. So, just whatever works for you, honestly. It's more about creating frames of reference of which to remember to like kind of anchors when you're going down to draw the rest of your character or develop it as you go. Yes, I'm gonna draw a stick figure too, so this is gonna be great. How do I draw people's? I'm gonna go through chat real quick.
All cameras are go. If you
We need snow women. Yes, snow people. Snow people. I shall use the more inclusive snow people. So, start with the face. Let's see if that helps. Great. And so usually this is where sort of the head stacking would be great, but also like I think it's worth practicing, but it doesn't become. It's more about practicing what looks right, and it doesn't really continue past that, I guess, is the best way to explain it. So I'm going to say stick. Right about here is going to be where I draw the shoulders. Usually it's about a head's length away from the center is about kind of where you're aiming. But again, diverse body types, not always the case. And then we're going to say... I always like to use the bottom of the rib cage and where the diaphragm is as a midpoint for the body, because around there is kind of where your waistline happens before your hips. So it's usually a really good spot, and I mark it with an arch right there. And then we go down to hip bones. So hip bones are fun. It's like a bowl at the bottom of your body. And I will mark them similar to the shoulders because they kind of fall right underneath them. I'm going to say right there. And I usually do that because the fun part are the legs. So legs, instead of just dropping them straight down, part of what studying anatomy and drawing bones and skeletons will help you like realize and help you remember what forms look like, right? Help you remember forms. So legs I actually will always draw this way. I will draw a socket out from the hip bone. I forget what the name of this bone is. I'm sorry. Brain does not remember much from college. And I'm going to draw down from there. And the rest of the body will be here. So this is a stick figure that probably is not correctly proportioned. It's not proportioned. It has very long legs and the hips are very wide. It's fine. It's fine. I haven't drawn people in a really long time. Welcome, Left-Handed Monkey Wrench. Good to see you, Octavia. I'm gonna say not because I am probably gonna mess up names because words are hard right now and I just got off work, so my brain's a little fried. Let's see, checking out chat. Looks like an anchor with a head on it. Yes, pretty much. And then usually from here, we're gonna build the body out. A lot of the big, these are kind of the points that I look for when I'm drawing people. And we'll just also add in the rib cage here, because that's also important when we deal with things later. This is a really fun hack about a rib cage. Rib cage will sit underneath the collarbone and kind of meet where the elbows are. There'll be two little half circles to designate the top of it, so you know that you're looking in, and the rib cage on the bottom, so you know it kind of caves upward. And this will help later when you're trying to figure out perspective and such, and it's just a huge help. It's just a huge help. All shapes are valid. Yes, they are. Hip cuspis. Yes, I think those are I remember these kind of. They're definitely sparking some memory. And then we do little paddle mittens for hands. Paddle mittens are the best. Same with feet. I used to also be very guilty of drawing boot feet because I never wanted to deal with feet, but really, they are just doorstops. They will help a lot to give those, like, just give you placeholders. They are doorstops in the same way that hands are just mittens. So, this is kind of the main layout that I do with human forms. I always want to know where shoulders are, where the collarbone's going to sit, because a lot of movement and the way the body's going to shift is going to rely on where these two flat points are. So always kind of have an idea of where they're going. Legs will always kind of build differently, and this helps you fill out shapes later when we're drawing people. Paddle mittens better than no hands. That's true, because then it just gets daunting and scary when there's nothing there, and creating from nothing is terrifying. I didn't become a stick figure artist just to learn science. That's true. Okay, cool. So, trying to think from here. We'll stay on this little, our delightful, all gendered stick figure. So my usual fill-in for muscles, I'm trying to think. A lot of the form that I'll always fill in is where the waists kind of fit in. This is a very long torso, I do apologize. So hips and waistline are really weird. They're not actually in the same spot. If you ever had to do fittings and clothing, it's usually very separate, very different measurements. And so a lot of what you take in when you've drawn anatomy and study the human body, the musculature, and where ligaments go, is that you will learn where these forms kind of come from. And it'll be a lot easier to fill them out. And leg shape is this, for muscle reasons. So there's always a weird divot here because of the ligaments that actually fill out here and the tendons that actually fill in the socket joint. So you always kind of dip in a little before the muscles come out over here. You have your knees. And so calf muscles are also fun. The shape of calf muscles is kind of close to the skin on the outside with more of the muscle in the back over there. Because everything else down here becomes tendon and stays fairly close to the bone. So this is the general shape that I like doing with calves. Kind of this, flip. This is what a foot shape generally looks like for me from the side, with knees being there and leading up to the thigh. The simpler the better, and a lot of I don't worry too much about angles because they'll get softened later, but these angles helps create this energy for me. I like seeing angles and straight lines. It makes things interesting, right? It makes it far more interesting than just going, well, that's a calf. Whereas this, I can feel a force being there, being supported, being pushed up against. And it's always just more evocative to start sketching with that, so you kind of remember, oh, this is the feeling that I had. Because one of the conundrums that I have when I'm doing life drawing, right? Life drawing, I haven't been to one in a long time, but there's always a really hard decision to make when I'm drawing people. Do I need to make this perfect? Part of me wants me to make the most perfect photographic, photo quality sketch of this person's drawing. It's gonna be perfect, the shadow's gonna be great, the muscle's gonna be all in the right place, it's gonna be a perfect proportion. And that's great and all, and that's a really fun exercise, and sometimes I miss out on the fact that, wait, there was this feeling that I want, but I also want to capture a feeling when I see it. What are my eyes doing? What's drawing my attention? Where are my eyes going? Where are the shapes leading me to? That's kind of more exciting, and what is this person going to do next, right? That is the feeling that I want to capture, but I can't do both at the same time, sometimes not with the time that I'm allotted. Yes. Human proportions. They're really hard because we as human beings are really good at recognizing people. So if we screw up just a little bit, we just know it's wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how small the screw up is. We're just this is wrong. It doesn't look right. It's because we know what people look like. So when you're drawing people, don't feel bad. It's literally a primal instinct to be able to recognize humans. This is why we see faces all the time. It's why faces are hard, is because our brains know how to make them instinctively. And so when you're drawing them, it's just it's gonna be hard. So don't feel bad and don't feel disheartened. Keep practicing, because eventually you get it. It's all about muscle memory. It's all about the muscle memory. Oh hey, there's a random day of the week in chat. Who let her in here? What? Hashtag make your lines gay too. Yes, Iffy. Yes. Mozart, great job for capturing the spirit of a person. Yeah, and it's actually an immense challenge to do caricatures. I always find that so incredible when people who are character artists, capturing emotions and spirit really well. You find that you do less self-editing with the marker. I feel that I have to commit, so theater nerd, I used to draw a pencil, and then I started inking with ballpoint pen, and then wound up starting to commit with ballpoint pen around high school. And I find pens and ink kind of force you to commit and keep going, and learning that mistakes happen and you just kind of work with them. And they're not really mistakes. They become, well, that happened. That line is there now. What do I do? And sometimes really cool things happen, and sometimes, you know, you just keep going. It's trained me to like not really. It gets me out of feeling stuck, I guess, where like, well, if I don't draw something, nothing's gonna happen, and even if it's whatever, like there's gonna be a line there, and that's all that really matters. And it's good practice. It's helped me a lot to become less, not necessarily scared. It's not scared. I just don't feel just trapped. I don't feel like I can't make a decision. It helps me become extremely decisive about lines and what I want to try to do. And as long as I try it, it's okay, because I can try it again. I thought I recognized them by hands. Yeah. You ever just tried drawing something while just looking at it and not looking down, and just, you know, contour drawings are hard. Ugh. But what it does is create the connection between eyes and hand, and that's fun. It's just everything comes out as a big noodly mess. I can do one real quick because it'll be funny. I haven't done one in a very long time. So I'm going to try to draw the latte that is sitting in front of me without... it's going very fast. Without stopping. So I'm doing this really fast, but usually when when the whole point of contour lining is to create memory between your eyes and your hand and what it's doing. And so, yeah, this is a noodle drawing. And so you're supposed to take it a lot slower, and every movement with your eye is literally pinpointing a point on the object and just following it. And you just have your hand follow your eyes around this object, and it helps create the memory and that connection and the muscle memory to do the thing, to like do that, you know, look, the observation and draw. It's weird. Everything turns out to look like noodles, like a big pile of spaghetti. And sometimes it's really cool, and sometimes it's just like, oh no, I am never gonna keep that drawing. That drawing's not going in any box. We're gonna bring this back over here. Non-gendered, all-gendered human being. Gonna touch up on chat. Hello, Sleepy Wagon Man? Yeah. Hi. I'm trying to catch up right now. Diana Moon. Any suggestion to better drawing chubby fat people, especially since most art refs are geared towards skinny people? I'm trying to get out of the habit of sketching only skinny fit. Yes. Athletes are a really cool one. I just look up a lot of bodybuilding, or I think there's someone made a beautiful collection of just of athletes and in every form across the Olympics, and that's amazing. Or just even searching that as reference too. I used to follow a good reference site that had a good variety of models. Sometimes you can check out if any art schools sometimes will do like free drop-ins and free sketches. That can get kind of nerve-wracking. I don't like being surrounded by people and having them watch. I like people watching me draw, and sometimes after a live drawing session, I'll go around the room, I'm like, fuck, my drawing sucks. So I don't always wind up going because of that reason. Secret. Trying to think of other good references. I used to have a good list of sites. I can go through them because they are on my very old Tumblr. I will post them on Discord. If you go hang out on Discord, I will try and dig them out, and if I find them, I'll definitely send them on Discord for sure. So I don't remember them off the top of my head. A lot of it is searching keywords, the good keywords, searching out shows that you've seen and finding other like screenshots are great things to look at, especially in mid-motion. Sometimes I'll look up YouTube videos of like parkour or people doing things. That might be a good place to look for that. You'll find a variety of people. I think just streaming on the internet, and that's a really cool place to start. I'm trying to think other places you would go for that. I actually don't have that information on me, but I'll definitely post it on Discord. Thank you for that question. But yeah, trying to think. Yes, I think, is that what Lauren did? I don't know if Lauren posted that. Maybe she did. It's a great link. Says catch up on chat. So you're drawing lovely, I know.
Here's
Sure.
the link that Lauren posted.
Yes. Yes, it's that collection. I friggin' love it. It's amazing. Also, you're looking at bodybuilders too. Like a lot of times, it's like you think it's all chiseled muscle, and it's like no, it's this mass. It's this massive, just human flesh, and it's not always going to be perfectly chiseled. They're just going to have muscle mass, and it's very, very different, and it's really cool. So I'm going to continue this. Chest will always kind of be. I'm trying to think. So we have the torso. Next, I'm usually going to start with shoulders. So shoulders kind of come out here. This is what the deltoid looks like. It's one of my favorite muscles because it's a really cool name. Deltoids are here. Biceps are here. I shorthanded biceps into a rectangle because it'll be easier for later. And then elbows, because of the way the bones work here. So you have that bone, and then you have the humerus and the other bone that is not the humerus right here. And so this joint is what causes your elbow to do that. And why this is where your bicep is actually right there. And so, again, this is where having the anatomy helps. This is what I do after you've learned the anatomy and you're like, well, what do I do with this information? You begin to create things with, you begin to simplify the shapes for easier use for later. There's a lot of artists like I followed on Twitter that have like done a lot of really amazing just tutorials about how they simplify shapes or simplify muscle groups, and it's really, really helpful and it's amazing. One of the things that I will always do is simplify the arm into just simple rectangular prisms, because let's see, because it's so much easier to deal with. And we'll just do this is the deltoid. And because when you look at the side of your arm like this is the thinner side of these prisms. It just makes it a lot easier when things start to torque and turn around what actually is happening, and creates, it helps you keep the form in your arm, if that makes sense, instead of just going, well, this is an arm. You can instead, draw that, and it becomes something different. Like you've created the idea of a 3D form on 2D, on a 2D piece of paper, right? And this is why having this simplified form is really important, just kind of remembering it. Like it'll help you so much later on when you're shading, when you're trying to move things around in space. It's one thing to like learn the skeleton, but then like, how do I take the skeleton and do it? Like, how do I even pose people, or how do I build off of it? This is kind of what's going to be the most helpful. Like making things into simpler shapes and knowing how to hint at this mass, this 3D mass on a 2D media. That's kind of where it is. Trick everybody. Does that make it a 2x4 arm? Yes, it does. Everything is a 2x4 because it's super simple. It's more important than for an artist. Yeah, even without names, knowing where things are and how they look is going to be more important as an artist. Yes, I would agree with that. Unless you're teaching, which you should probably just review that every so often. Let's see. Drawings look way taller on the top-down camera. Yes, it is. It's also a not great proportioned body, I will admit. I haven't drawn people in a while. And so having a six-sack, like, standing person is kind of like would be helpful, but like we're gonna loosey-goosey this for a little bit because that's how art goes. So continue on with this arm here. And similar to the calf, the outside musculature will be much closer to the skin, while the insides will create that little muscle hump. There you go. Hashtag art things. We're gonna continue on with the deltoid again and the bicep box right here. And this for chest, the general, this is a very not well proportioned body. I apologize. And so you're gonna do muscles leading up to the neck right here around the shoulders that wrap down across your back. We'll go up here, and the neck actually is shorter and longer than you think. And so the neck will actually go from the bottom of the chin into the collarbone here. However, with the muscle eating in, it makes it very normal. At first I was like, oh no, I screwed up. No, I didn't. It's fine. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing, guys. This is all fine. Agatha figure drawing is the topic of choice tonight. It goes really well with all the information I've been consuming about the things our bodies do. Post-mortem, yes, bodies are weird. Yeah, bodies are beautiful and weird and just amazingly fragile, but insanely, insanely sturdy. It's incredible. It's not enough to bash in heads. We have to bash in minds. Oh, it's my lovely muscle humps. Yes, you're welcome. Hey, Jerry! Oh, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. Thank you for the sub. Drawing things. You should totally draw things with me because it's fun. And so, last thing to fill in, I've clearly made this kind of wonky. It's okay. Shoulders aren't as wide as I would like them to be. Usually with the chest, no matter who I'm going to wind up drawing, I have just a general idea of where the musculature sits because pectorals exist on everybody, and it is usually this sort of shape, and or at least this shape, right? It's going to be this sort of rectangular shape. So I'll just redraw it over here. And so we have pectorals will kind of always be this shape. So you're going to attach it from where your deltoids are. There's a muscle crest that goes right here. And this is where the pectorals will curl in and over. And then no matter what, you'll have a bar across because it is going to be a flat plane later, and we are going to see how this moves around in space. Yes, it is way tall. It is not proportioned well. My bad. I haven't drawn people in a long time. This is why practice is important. Doesn't matter if you're good at it. You should still practice. It's good for you. Practice is good for you. Okay, cool. So I'm going to redraw and practice and go over what we did. So, usually I like doing this kind of teardrop oval-shaped head. And it's a lot easier for me to reference as a face rather than having to do the whole, here's a circle and here's this, you know, and think about that right now when I'm trying to do a bigger picture. So we're going to go, usually another way you can do this is, here's about where the rib cage would be. I'm going to draw that. It's kind of a dumpling rib cage. And from there, that's where the hips will be. Hips are going to be here. Hips are great as triangles too. Just make your skeleton a superhero and give it some underwear. It's fine. I'm gonna do collarbone here. You can also do straight across, that's fine. I like using this as a point of reference. Your shoulders will be about here. No, well, a head, right? The head. And we're gonna do supinated hands. I learned, so your hands can be pronated or supinated, and the best is it a joke, pun? I don't know. Is that this is pronated and this is supinated because you want soup. That's it. You're done. That's it. Supination. That's how you know. That's how you'll never forget it. So we're going to have an open palm arm so I can show you some cool muscle things. And again with hand mittens. And then we're going to continue growing out with the legs. Again with the bone socket into the hip. Moving down into the knees, tibia and fibia. I'm pretty sure Kate Nash sings a song about skeletons. It's really cute. And again, door-stopping feet. So what's the worst thing to get stuck in a door? Your feet. Absolutely, absolutely your feet. My shoulders are weird. So I'm going to do bicep boxes, muscle humps down, to the 2x4 open hand, so we don't have to worry too much about twisting right now, to mitten paws. Alright, so I'm going to do that again with the pectorals. We're going to have a muscle that joins pecs into your deltoids, which is great right there, and do a line across. Here's your ribs. It's going to be some waistline leading onto hips where the muscles attach. I definitely screwed this up, that's fine. And to that. I definitely misplaced a lot of my markers, but you know what? It's gonna be okay because it looks like a human being. So yeah, like, after a while drawing, they're no longer mistakes. You just kind of like, well, that happened, and I'm just gonna keep going. It takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and just a lot of facing that feeling a lot. That's not a pun. That's just a nod. Thank you. Yes. Sorry. Just ask Lauren about chestplate armor. Yes, I definitely remember that. Or it's Cassandra. Yes, she does. Cassandra's insanely tall. We did the measurements. It's so tall. When you draw hens last, they're procrastinated. Thanks, Voice Smoker. Thank you for joining. It's good to see you. And yes, my phalanges. That's long. It's death. Cool. All right. And then we'll do that because there's a little muscle bit back here. I'm just gonna say that that exists there, and this is the shape. These are human shapes. Yay! We've drawn a person. And I made a lot of weird lines along the way. And there's your human. How do you build dynamic poses using your body shortcut hacks? Thank you for asking, Iffy. Part of this is also the connection with drawing from reference and why reference is important. Once you have some of these tricks and practice them and kind of start learning to see them, you start practicing with these tools by using your references. When you, or like even life drawing, right? And so when you look at, I wish I should have brought some reference images. It's fine. You look at a person, you begin to try to dissect. You know, the very first thing I usually will think, I'm trying to think about a back-facing person who's sitting, right? So I will always pinpoint shoulders and hip first, right? That's usually one, or the spine. Those are the three main lines that I will always set up because it's kind of, it dictates the energy and the direction in which this form is sitting. So let's do a person who's sitting, leaning. And so I'm gonna say it's about where the shoulder would be. I would mark shoulder and hip. And then perhaps spine leading down. For the win. Driver Restless, is it an encyclopedia or something for that? There's a good site that I used to follow for a lot of, it has an immense collection of dancers and cosplayers and just like reference images from the internet, and usually I'll find it. It's on my old Tumblr. I have to go dig for it. But I'll post it on Discord, so you should definitely go follow us on Discord and join the Inklings channel and post like your art or, you know, cool stuff that you've done. I would really love to see if like just see work. I love seeing art. I love seeing people share things, and I just love seeing it. It's really great. It's just really cool. There's a really good site for it. I don't really have any physical books that I use anymore for references because they're just so big, and finding pages and like revisiting them just winds up breaking a lot of spines that I have. So I don't have any books to recommend per se besides Human Figure Anatomy for Artists is usually what I go to study things. Speaking of comics, it may not be turning the skeleton into a cut rate superhero as a doodle along. Yes, please, let's do it. So hi. Oh my gosh.
If you mentioned, sorry.
Hello.
Hi. If you mentioned, I don't know if Anna has any comic books at the studio, and I don't. They're all, the ones that I have are all at home, except for that's from a webcomic. She is wonderful. I love her.
Look at these stickers.
And then I have these antiques. This one's not antique. That one's relatively new. This one's antique.
Oh my gosh.
And unfortunately, I had really, really wanted to get this signed by Stan Lee, but yeah, I was never able to. So I don't know if any of this is helpful to you. Otherwise, I'll just get out of your way.
Oh no, it's fine.
So feel free to look through and
this is
do what you need to do.
actually this is a book that I bought in college, and I sold it back, and I wish I hadn't. It's a really good book about how to compose and tell stories. By the way. Yes, thanks.
It's here.
Bunch of naked humans. Is this okay for Twitch?
It's artistic. It's a lot.
Is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Trying to find something cool. All right, let's do this one because back stuff is really fun. It's art, of course it is. I don't know. For some reason, like I don't know. The internet's a weird place sometimes. It's the fucking Wild West. I don't know. Understanding comics. Yes, is that one too? Yeah. I'm gonna make some space really quick. Ugh. Ugh. Oh no. Oh no. I curled over too much. Okay. So we're gonna do this. Let's see how I can do this without covering up a lot of stuff. Maybe you can see it on screen as well. Top down. Oh no, this is fine. Figure out a way. Okay, cool. So let me know I need to move these books. I'm gonna draw on this side right here. So let me know. Nudity is weird in terms of censorship. Yes, exactly. So I'm like, well, front, just in case. Just in case, because somebody might get offended, so whatever. All right, cool.
Here's the full view of what
Fantastic. That's awesome. So I'll always start with this shape, because this line is most interesting to me, and this is kind of where I feel the form, right? And this is a lot of the composition lines. People like will always draw a line, right? You just do a gesture drawing. So gesture drawings is less about, you know, filling stuff in and more about where your feelings are. And so I'm just going to actually do a gesture really quick of this, or kind of remember what gesturing really is. And that's it. That's what I would leave as it. Oh, actually, no, I want that there. So this is my gesture drawing. To me, the feelings that I feel is something going out here and pointing up. This would probably be a little more pronounced right there, with the head being more weighted this way. And so this isn't anything close to a sketch. It has nothing to do with the sketch or creating any forms. Gesture drawing is about where you see motion, where things are pushing and pulling away. It took me, I didn't understand this until way after college. It's a hard thing to teach. It's hard to just stop drawing what's in front of you and draw what you feel. Gesture is going to be very much about the energy and finding things. And later, this actually helped later once I learned how to apply it, and then I would start seeing gestures a lot better. And so from here, I'm going to see if... this is gesture. We'll just leave it at gesture. And then move this here. And so I'm going to do a sketch. Now that I've seen where I want points of interest to be, we'll start again with the main shape. I think nibs will get you a talking to. I know. But only if it's female presenting, which is me presenting a nipple. Hello, Lena. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are doing some drawing. So I'm sharing up my tips and tricks about how I deal with human anatomy. I haven't done human drawing in a while. I actually should go do a live drawing sometime. But there's a big step for me where I learned human anatomy. You learn the muscles, you learn the bone structure, and then you're like, well, what now? Do I just draw muscles forever? And you totally can. I've seen some artists who just literally start their monsters and their people from bones to musculature to fully fleshed monsters, and it's amazing and it shows. It is a process that you can take the time to learn, or like there are other ways around it, and there are different ways of doing things. And so what I've taken to doing instead is doing a lot of, I've learned rules, and I tend to enjoy breaking them more than I do necessarily following them. And so I've just been sharing some tips and tricks about how after you've learned the anatomy, what's the next step? And for me, it's a lot of simplifying forms. For me, simplifying forms is an easier way to draft and sketch and create more things in less time, so you can get to something more interesting and then take the effort and time of drawing full-fledged skeletons and musculature into something final and multi-stepped and complete, as it were. Good night, Sleepy Wagon. I know this is a D in there, but I'm going to say Sleepy Wagon because that's great. Never speaks up in chat. Drew male presenting nipples on our Shadowrun board. That's wonderful. I love it. I enjoy clever things. First thing I see is free the nipple. What? Welcome. All right, so we've done the gesture drawing, or the best that I've done in a while, and found the points of interest and the places where there's push and pull and turns and focus. So we're going to start again with this line because I feel that this is kind of where the mainstay of this the figure is, I'm gonna just kind of mark where the head is and not worry about doing hair and stuff. We can do that later. And then I'm gonna mark where the shoulders are. And so for me, the shoulders are here. I'm gonna do another cool drawing after this one too. So I'm gonna try and do this as close to this drawing as possible and not push it too far. And so I'll do shoulders first. And shoulders are kind of not just straight across, since they kind of are curving. This is kind of what I'm going to do. I feel that this is the shape here, and this is the neck shape. The neck shape pulls across, and we're just going to leave that angle there, just to remind me this is where this starts and this is kind of where it ends. And then we're just going to do the line there as the arm. Not worry about it too much. We're going to take where the head starts, do a bit of spine drawing down, and then to the hip right here, we'll say. And then we're going to take where the leg starts. Here's that little bone bit. And push it here. He's not going to fit. That's going to be okay. And then we're going to go down to where his calf will be. Just going to say that's kind of where it is, maybe. I'm not going to worry about it too much. And here is where the doorstop is. Doorstop. Yeah, doorstop. Actually, the heel comes out farther, but we're not gonna worry about that right now. And I'm gonna do the quick deltoid muscle there, the box for kind of where the bicep is, and the mini box where the tricep sits. That's gonna be our elbow right there. Back from, I'm gonna revisit the spine. I'm gonna fill in, before I started noodling small details when I shouldn't have. I'm gonna fill in where the rib cage is. So the rib cage is gonna kind of start here, go down, fall here, and kind of back around. And the view of it, because we're going to try and fill in the crescents to kind of remind us where things are, the neck is probably going to be over here on the other side, while the other rib is going to follow there. And this helps for me envision. It looks like a mess right now, but this is kind of a mental note of where it opens in the front, right? Whether or not, if it's something that doesn't help you, don't worry about it. But for me, it helps me remember where things are going to sit later. We're going to continue on with the arm. Oops. And we're going to say the hand paddle is here. Hand mitten, which connects to an arm that does this. And here's your 2x4. We're going to do the meaty shoulder bit here. That's a little too big, but that's fine. And since I've drawn the rib cage here, next to the spine, I have this wedge right there. And that's why it's important. That's why it's important placing ribs and knowing kind of, you don't just draw the ribs here, you draw them where they need to be, not just up top. Mental note, seeing through the figure, very cool. Yes, it helps me place where things need to go and kind of remember where the rib cage is actually sitting. Let's see. Just gonna catch up on chat. Y'all are great. Thank you for keeping me company. It's very delightful. And then we're gonna fill in the rest of this arm, maybe? No, I'm gonna start with kind of where the shoulder bit is. So this is where that shoulder muscle is sitting. We're gonna say, here's where the rib muscles start. Here's a very long torso. This is my bad. The hip there leading down. And boom. Gonna do part of the back trapezius leading down to the hips. And let's see, where am I going? Okay, cool. So this is where this bit of the muscle right above the hip it lives. And so this little spot right there is kind of where that little bone, where your bones kind of stick out from being socketed into your hips. Because we've drawn this, and as you may notice, like I usually draw legs not as a straight line, but as continuing that curve. Because as you saw earlier, legs kind of do this because they their bones actually kind of move like that with your kneecap here and your feet there. This is really weird. This is kind of how that happens. And so, hence studying the form and the anatomy will help you later when, for example, I'm looking at this person sitting down, but I know what's actually happening on the inside. I think it's shown here, actually. I just saw this. This is fine. The bone is actually going to be there. And it helps create that shape right here, as you see, this little curve. And so because we have made that mental note, we know that the leg actually does this, and it makes it a lot easier to create these muscle forms that sit on top. Oops, wait, where are we? Okay, yes, here. And the muscles will follow that bone, which it's just going to set you up for success by creating the shapes of which you can build on. There's another muscle there. And we're going to do the kneecap, which is right here, connecting down. And we're going to finish off the rest of the thigh, because there's a muscle under here. And here is that calf. And we'll continue down with the shin first before filling out this muscle from the back. There's a good diagram there. The actual muscle mass names, I don't remember them anymore. Studying, trying to think of other ways of studying muscle groups. A lot of it is, I think, watching people in motion, watching athletes. Athletes are a good one just to learn where muscles go and how they work. The masses will change depending on where, and it's a lot of like learning what pulls and what pushing does, like what muscles are actually in use when you're pushing away versus pulling, for example. And then you'll start knowing what masses to accentuate more because they are simply bunching up. Like, for example, I think lifting this is a combination. Oh my god, that's a complex motion. I was like, I'm going to be very helpful. It's a combination of a lot of forearm and bicep, which is why your bicep gets bigger, because it is contracting up and drawing the rest of the connective tissue and your bones up, I believe. I said fear is where the heart is. Yes. That spine hurts my back. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Thank you. It's really interesting teaching because I have to dissect and then put into words things that I instinctively do, and they are all built on multiple, like a lot of experiences and a lot of learned moments. So thank you. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, the back hurts because this is not very helpful, right? Okay, well, we're gonna continue going. So we've done this leg. We're gonna continue down, and I'll work on defining bones as we go. So the other leg that we have left will be stationed out here. I'm not gonna do too much of the bend, I think. Well, you can do this, right? That's gonna be that leg bone, and we're gonna have the kneecap there. And so this is kind of difficult. So whenever I see like a leg fold into perspective, it gets really hard to really know what I'm looking at, and sometimes I will align my pen or whatever I'm drawing to the angle that it's in just to see where it sits and just kind of do this as a guide, right? It just helps me see, like sometimes my brain is like trying to compute too many things at once and I'm not really sure where to start. And what I usually do is I will always align my pen or pencil to whatever limit is that I'm drawing and kind of copy it and replicate it in some form or fashion as a guideline here. And so now that I kind of know this is what that leg is doing, we can start building around it, knowing that the bones are going to be there. And because you're sitting like this is kind of the shape of that muscle. Built there with your knee here and the rest of that leg there. We'll finish off with the calf here and the rest. So the fun thing about having drawn this leg bone is a slight curve. I know there's going to be muscle up top, but it also helps create this divot here, which is represented right there. This might not also like, and so these little kind of quick curves of bone is kind of a shorthand for me for a structure underneath, but also what the shape is going to be doing. And so to help me, this leg is way too far off. That's fine. It helps me create a complex shape with less lines and more precision, I guess, with more confidence. It just helps me out. Rather than having to like piece together, I need to do the muscles. Like, here's a shorthand done. And when you only have like a minute and a half to do a life sketch, you gotta do the best that you can. Also, drawing on a flat surface this way makes everything much longer, so apologies for that. It's fine. Everything is fine. what's going on in chat with laundry baskets and bikes, but y'all are creative. Okay, cool. This is kind of good place to start. Here's the butt. This is where the butt is. So this is the other, I'm trying to think. I marked the shoulders, but I never marked the hips because a lot of it is kind of through the other side, and it's not going to exactly help me about knowing where things go. Perhaps knowing that, but it's not really going to help me. What I need to know is where legs are going to be happening, sort of, and the rest of this angle is so small, like the hip is just so overlapped that drawing that line would be unhelpful. However, trying to think of another trick. Let's see. I think I'll do that next. So we're gonna do this. Gonna do some muscle work. Gonna do some defining and some rendering. This is a lot of just using what you see and using knowledge that you have about why things are where they are. For example, I know the not trapezius, sorry, this is the tricep. And that connects here to the outside on this, kind of on this end of the deltoid. That's the name of it. And this is where the shoulder bone is. So we're going to do that. Do some shading as we go. A lot of times what I like doing, shorthand shading, is like doing just quick lines down. Because what that winds up it helps me figure out the shape of the 3D object, for example. So we can do this line because this makes sense, right? Or up top and you're like, well, this is also where that line works. And so the really cool thing that we did a study for a while back is that we would draw muscles. So you would, for example, let's just draw a deltoid and bicep. Here's your tricep going down to the elbow, right? And so we would shade this not as shading, but as contour lines to just kind of figure out how muscles actually work. And so this would actually help us figure out, well, this is actually just how that goes, right there. And that would help you start seeing the shapes. This became a really nice way to, start adding extra shadow right there in the direction. It's like directional shading, I think it's kind of what it's called. And it helps a ton to learn how to see and how to depict 3D objects in a 2D space. It just makes it super easy, right? Like, what the heck? Super easy. Muscles run on coffee. That's true. There's lactic acid in it, right? Obviously, milk and coffee go together. Duh. We just don't know. This is kind of works out. Oh, cool, awesome. I'm glad the angles work out, Iffy. And so we're gonna continue on with this sort of hatching. And so now the back of this arm, similar to our 2x4, right? It's gonna be, that's kind of where that is, and this is where that part is. And that's why creating simple shapes will help a lot. It'll help when you start rendering and like, well, what is this thing doing? Like, oh, I know, it's kind of like the 2x4, so at least I know it'll start this way and something will happen. It's an easy way to start and get your mind going and processing and seeing how things actually work using your mind's eye. All right, hands. Okay, so it's the fun part, right? So we have our mitten already. I'm gonna look at this, and from what I can see, this is kind of where I'm gonna start again with this mitten shape, and I'm gonna start with our rectangle, our favorite 2x4, except it's gonna be more of a 2x2. Okay, a little 2x2 right there. That's where I see it because this is where the knuckles start, and that's kind of the best place to stop. And then the next set of things happen. The next set of shapes. The phalanges, the first metacarpals, are its own like kind of a its own little slab, and so they kind of do this shape. I'm gonna do that real quick, and there you go. And then the next shape is kind of more of this. We'll just kind of leave it unfinished because we're gonna fill that in later. And then we're gonna look at the mitten hand, the thumb. The thumb is actually doing this and this, right there. That little wedge. That's the first shape. And this is going to be the second shape. So thumbs are weird. I usually simplify them into this little triangle shape and this sort of it's a peanut, it's a teardrop. Thumbs kind of, let's see. Let's do a quick thumb study. So you got your hand, your first set of metacarpals. I think I'm using the wrong words. It's a meta something. And then this is your thumb. So usually start again with the line. It's kind of like, here's your shape. And it does this sort of thing. Right? Like it's a steak fry. It's a tiny steak fry. That's what your thumbs are, little steak fries. And it's a lot of the overlap. And there's that thumb. Really easy. And here are your fingers. So thumbs are potato wedges, potato steak fries. There you go, steak fries. Metacarpal is the hand. Tarsals are the feet. Thank you. Coffee. Yes, coffee. Wedge, but where is the bigs? They are little steak fries. There you go. That'll help. Made the little crescent-shaped steak fries. Okay, we got our steak fries. This is a mess, but it's okay because we're gonna figure it out. And so we are going to look at forms and how hands actually connect. I'm gonna do a bigger version of this so we can look at it. So we started off with this 2x2 wedge, a triangle, a steak fry, and we're gonna do hands for little first layer and then the second layer there. So I feel like starting from like the top of the flat of the hand where the knuckles are. This is the easy place to look and kind of, it's always easy to follow and go to. So fingers are fun. Fingers, I try, people like drawing them as cylinders. That is not helpful because when you start doing perspective, it's really easy to just shade hot dogs instead of actual fingers. So fingers, I will always reduce again to a cube shape. No matter how smooth or curved something winds up being in its final form, having an angle helps you it helps you see the shape better in space and start rendering and drawing it on a 2D plane. So fingers are actually, again, cubes. We're gonna do this. It's a carrot stick. And from here is the rest of your fingers and your knuckle. And so it's much easier to have your fingers and your joints drawn when you have this little line right here. And compared to like a cylinder, like where do I even start with that? Do I just pretend? Like it's much easier to do a prism. Easier to do a prism. I think that you'll see that.
You should have range if you want to pull it right onto the paper.
Yeah, let's do this. Okay, cool. So you can see that there. Yes, there we are. So instead of just a cylinder, I'm like, yeah, that's not exactly helpful. Like it's helpful in like setting up your joints. Like if you wanted to, you can set up your joints and that's fine. But why do that extra work, right? When you can just draw them as carrot sticks. Much more interesting, way easier to render, and there's a lot more character to work with when you have it that way. Because these angles just kind of, I don't know, that kind of bisection creates energy for me and motion. And it's a lot easier to shade when I have a line to go by and not have to worry about it because fingers are actually a lot flatter than you think. Literally handy. I can move it around. But what about the crinkle cut? Well, yes, I mean, knuckles are crinkle cut, so it kind of is a crinkle cut. Give me the lives in these. Yes. Yes. Knuckles are huge hinge joints. You need hinge joints. Yes. And this is where learning the anatomy of how bones actually fit together helps you create these sort of shapes and realize, oh, bones are actually very angular when they connect. So there's that hot tip about fingers. Fingers are not sausages, they are carrot sticks. Or steak fries. Steak fries, crinkle fries. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Let's go back to this hand. So we're gonna render that knowing that there is that shape. We're gonna take, I like this starting point. So we're gonna take that, kind of create that as the edge. I'm gonna draw that first index finger. So the index finger starts with this shape at the knuckle, goes out here, and then comes down to a point. So now that we have this angle, shading is super easy, right? You're just like, oh, there's that shading right there. Boom, done, easy. When I'm going to move to the middle finger. Same kind of connection, that kind of nice little line in to create that little fold of skin. And yeah, figure drawing also isn't just, I'm going to draw this muscle. It's also drawing how skin actually folds and moves around on the body. So when, it's hard to think about that one. A lot of the shapes that you wind up drawing are going to be hidden around a fold or a crease over. Not a really good example on this one, but a lot of the fingers, when you think about it, right? So your skin is just going to be there because it's kind of like a bat wing where it opens and you're like, yeah, there's bat wings, but then when you close it, there's these little lines of just folded away skin. Little bat wings. Your hands are little bat wings. These triple gammas are also interesting. No. Oh no. Yeah, have a good time at class. Yeah, have a good time at class, Diana. Also, check it out on the VOD because this is gonna be really fun. I like the series; it's really great. Gonna go. Okay, cool. I'm gonna move on to the next finger. It's gonna do that line, and oh, lo and behold, here's this really cool surface right there. Easy, done, bam. Next finger, boom, bloop, bloop. And so having the setup of these different shapes with angles actually makes the hand so much easier. Instead of having to sit there and agonize over each finger, I already know where they go because I have the shape. You have mittens, it's fine. Now, we're gonna figure out how these set of fingers connect to the thumb. And so we can see from here is that if you look at it, right, so you've got this connecting in, the fold of the skin anyway, because this webbing is very fascinating. It's always like just looking around, just observing and looking at your own body will help you understand a lot of more complex forms and shapes, especially hands. Hands are like everybody's nightmare. It's fine. Hands are nightmares. And so looking at this, I can see that this will happen. So this is kind of where that shape goes. So looking at a model, sometimes you're like, well, I can't see that detail. Like, well, what would my hand actually be doing? I'm going to say that's where the fold of the skin is, where the muscle meaty bit is. I'm going to continue out with the thumb. And so I think I made that wedge a little too silly. Made it too extravagant. So we're just going to follow it a little bit to here to make the flat portion of the thumb where the nail is. And this is kind of where the joint, we're going to say that's where the joint is. And then, so this is the slab that helps. But as you can see, there's a bunch of meat here where your thumb is. That creates this nice little curve right there. So we're going to follow that. And up we go. And there's your thumb. Huzzah! Meaty hands! Yay! Mittens! Good night, Paladin Hulk. It is nighttime there. So let me just show her drawing service too. We're working on it, Iffy. And so now we're going to look at how everything kind of connects together on the hand to arm portion. So the important part about setting up that 2x2 earlier is knowing that this edge is going to connect to the plank that is in your forearm, and it helps just set you up for success, right? Set you up for knowing, well, if I'm going to draw people, I can't have this disconnected from the rest of my hand. It has to follow through. And so we're going to look at this. It seems that follows that way. There's a bit of the hand going in there, it looks like, and that. So the way I would dissect this is to continue on with that 2x2 that we drew as part of the forearm right there. And this is how we know how to shade. This becomes really easy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't have to worry about being perfect. This is easier to shade. And yeah, pretty happy with that. And so it's going to do that. This is kind of where I'm saying the shape comes from. And that's a hand. Yay! It's a hand. It's not too terrible. That's how you go from mitten to hand. A smitten to hand. Okay. Now we cites Raymond as an example where arms are optional for hands to exist and work. Yes, because hands are great sources of character anyway, and that's really all you need for an amazing character like Rayman. We're going to continue on with shoulder bits. So I know for sure the scapula kind of lives in here somewhere. This is where all these muscles, well, actually, the scapula's in here. As depicted in the rest of these photos. So the scapula looks like is kind of this shape that lives in there. So a lot of muscle, there's going to be muscles in this little kind of pocket right here, leading up to this shape, and this hard edge right here where that bone is. I'm going to continue on where the muscle sits, right there. And that's kind of where we leave it. A lot of, so simplifying this is kind of like a patty-shaped slab right there, which is why a lot of your shading is going to be on this outer edge. I'm going to rearrange this camera. Kind of right there. And we can do, again, the contour shading and kind of do this as the top to see where we are. This helps us understand what's going on here. Same with this, we're gonna take this shape right there, and then take this shape right there. This is kind of a mess. It's okay. Figure it out. just learn to unsee it. It's not even asking about like how does drawing in pen and marker help. It's just like you see this, you're like, well, it's there. I'm drawing more into this will make it worse, so I have to be careful and I have to like choose what I really want to do and what I want to depict. So I'm gonna do the shoulder really quick. It's kind of where the collarbone is going to be sitting. Here's the muscle that attaches to the neck that's right there. And we're going to do a little bit of contour shading as we lead up to it. And I do smaller and closer together to make distance to show things kind of falling away into a shadow. Patty slabs. Yep. Ooh. NASA. Oh, Ultima Thule. Cool. I'll have to look that up. I love the photos from NASA. They're so beautiful. I was looking at stuff from Juno, and those look like the most beautiful thing. I built a new computer, and because I want to use this computer to like render more 3D art and work on my 3D art, I named it Juno. Definitely inspired by all the beautiful pictures and renderings of Jupiter. I also have this NASA sticker that's on my computer, and I love her. It's so pretty. Let me go back to continuing down the muscle shapes. I've forgotten a lot of what the muscle groups look like and are called in this portion of the back. We're gonna go with it. So part of the trapezius definitely is a straight edge right there. It's kind of, you can kind of feel it where there's these two strips of muscles that follow your back, right? So we're gonna move this here. So you have your spine, right? And this is gonna be where your shoulders are, kind of where your scapula lives, right here. And so there's a muscle mass. There's this immense T shape that goes from the back of your neck all the way down, but it doesn't go over your spine. It follows it. It's like held in together. It kind of lives and nestles there. And so, I mean, there's more muscle groups than simply this trapezius. Like, there's a lot of other stuff tucked away here from shoulder muscles. There's a bunch of this immense T-shaped muscle that just kind of, I think this is kind of where it flows in. And this is kind of that big slab we're going to be working on the back. This is all that back muscle. So following back, I'm going to move that there. Following that kind of huge T shape, this is kind of where that goes. And talking about some muscle that wraps under here. I'm going to follow that sort of that way and move down. Trying to think, does this help me? Not exactly. Okay, this is fine. So part of that muscle that wraps around underneath is going to be defining what's our ribs, our rib cage kind of. It circles around there, creates a bit of a shadow. I'm going to darken it because I like it there. And then we're just going to kind of noodle out some shapes here. Kind of our back muscle and kind of what's going on. This drawing specifically just has a lot of like muscle bits going. I'm not going to worry too much about it because I'd rather kind of show you what the shading is kind of doing. A lot of it is going to be showing you what the shape is and what you're trying to see. So this is the shape here that kind of changes partially to this right there, kind of following your spine and that slab of muscle that follows it. So there's like a shift kind of right here. I'm going to do another drawing of this to kind of show you the motions and the energy that I see from it and where this kind of twist happens, I guess. There's that twist right there. Bloop. It's like there's a bit of that muscle that sits right on top of your hip bone right there. Just gonna hit that out. Really dark. Still gonna use the contour shading because this helps to know. It'll always help you even when you're doing some dark shadows. You continue down the back right here. Draw a hand that looks like a hand. Yes, you did it! That's awesome! If you feel like it, post it in Discord. I would love to see it, or you can DM to me too, because I would love to see it. It's really cool. Timothy is a large object they found at the edge of our oh, that's right. Yes, look at yeah, no, I saw that photo. That's insane. Oh God, that's insane. Really? Yeah, it does. It sounds like a Final Fantasy MMO. Sent Jupiter's. Yes, I did also find it funny that Juno was sent to go check on Jupiter, because y'all know what Jupiter gets himself into. Everyone. Let's see. I'm gonna continue on with some of the shading. So I'm gonna look at underneath. Figure out what these are some of my favorite muscle groups right here. That creates the really cool shapes right underneath your rib cage, leading to the ab structure in the front. These are always just fun lines. I think these lines are just simple, and they define a lot, just by simply being there. This is a very fun part of the body that I personally enjoy drawing. And then we're gonna do that, and this is a really cool little bit of shading right there because there's a bit of muscle right here. We're gonna draw kind of a guideline, and then start shading from the line inwards to make this the darker shade, to create some value there and make it really easy, and create this form in the middle. It's the absence of light, or the absence of shading is this extra light, meaning it's creating this illusion of a form moving towards you, right? Do that. I'm just gonna do that for myself because it's easier to see. I'm just gonna shade that in right there. Yes, like my jab at Jupiter. Okay, cool. We are gonna continue down the hip to the butt. We're gonna shade the rest of the back here. It's the back of the trapezius. It makes its way down to the back of the pelvis and wraps itself around. This butt is way too far out. That's okay. These are choices that I have made. So we're gonna do that. And we're gonna re-establish where these shapes are going, right? I drew my guidelines. They're not always necessarily on point, but they're gonna help guide me later. This is not gonna be the most perfect sketch rendering. So again, we're gonna do this contour shading. Maybe not a full arch that way because this is where it's going. So we're gonna do this. Boop, 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 boop. I forgot about contour shading. It's like one of my favorite things to do to help me learn to see things. And so we're going to stop at that little source of light and follow on the rest of this muscle mass right here. I don't know if I like that kind of shading. I'm just going to continue on with what we were already doing and go down. Oh no, Sal. Okay, well, yep. My life has changed. Thank you. Continuing down, as we look at this drawing, we see that there's this kind of implied edge, right? And so while the thigh and your legs at first will seem like very curvy and very, like, even no matter how chiseled you are, there's still gonna be this edge. It is not simply just a sausage, right? There's structure, there's muscle mass. And so we have this nice little line going through the legs. So I'm just going to do kind of little guides along the way because it's going to get covered up eventually. And we are just going, let's see. So looks like there's a muscle mass here. And this is kind of where our leg meets up. So we're gonna sketch kind of this quadriceps. Quadriceps? Yes, right? Quads, your quads. And so, the information you take from anatomy about where the muscle structures are is going to help figure out where these lines are going, right? And so, because we're contour shading here, if I kind of know the shape of this muscle, which is going to be kind of like this, right, as it kind of builds itself around the leg, I'm just going to do that and build. And this is where you take the information of, like, well, I know what this muscle is, what do I do with it now? You take the information, you just kind of to inform the decisions of what you're going to articulate. Because in the end, when you're drawing and rendering like this, lines are only kind of the shift of shape of where like the light changes. And that's like a helpful thing to remember, like how we dealt with this midsection here. This line became more of like a change in shade. Same with this, like I created that little guideline. This is where there's a change of light, for example. Like it signifies a change of something. It is simply just a line. Same thing with painting. It's not that you shouldn't use lines, but like lines, you start using them as a guideline about where your light is changing, and it's helpful. That's like probably the most helpful piece of advice I've gotten when I'm still learning to paint, and it's still the most helpful bit of advice I've ever gotten. There's no such muscle. The quads. Dodecaceps. Only if you're a centaur, but even then. Today I just learned that my body is made of folds and triangles. Yep. We are made of star stuff. That's actually the greatest and most beautiful truth. So we're just gonna noodle that in there, fill that up. And as we continue down the leg, now this is the fun part. So this is where the muscle sits, and then there is another. This is kind of where the rest of your knee goes. So because of this line, I'm just gonna fill in the shading behind it, kind of where it is actually going, and continue drawing out the rest of this muscle mass that is kind of squished out here from sitting and then being pulled down by gravity. And this is the butt. So your gluteus maximus, your big glutes. Oh, this leg is not great. So it's fine. Whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right. So go down to the knee section. So I'm going to try and simplify the leg. Legs are weird to simplify. These are another hinge joint. It kind of, your knees I'm going to pull this camera up so we can see. Your knees kind of sit here with a bone right there, and the rest kind of connected here. Right? And so this is kind of, if we're going to do a 2x4, right? We're going to do some 2x4 drawings right there. I'm going to do another one kind of right here. So this is going to be kind of where this will sit, the front, and kind of the side. Well, this is all noodly and weird, but this is going to help us figure out where to start. So looking at how this drawing looks, right here, this model, this is kind of where that line is starting right there. It's going to be starting right above the kneecap. We're going to darken that up, use that line as a contour shading, and kind of follow it through. There you are. 30 seconds, I actually made a handish living hand. Yes, this is great. Yay! I'm glad you are learning. Let me give you a hand. I'm drawing some hands. That you see on the internet is Cookbook for the Universe. Hydrogen and Time. Yes. The magic. Maybe if you're Sleipnir, yes. Yes, Sleipnir. I love Sleipnir's story. Poor Loki. God, poor Loki. Sort of, but also, what the fuck, Loki? So this is, we're going to do a very quick pass. Just to kind of flatten this out, making a mental note. It's kind of where the shading is going. And so the leg is fun, because this is actually another, similar to the triangle, it's a wedge shape that's just gonna sit there. I'm gonna keep going this, and eventually it takes up the entire foot, up to the entire ankle. And now we're gonna go back and kind of fine tune where these shapes actually are. So I'm gonna do a line here, because what we see is a bit of a, kind of an edge right there. So you have dark shadows here, and then it fades out to the light. So we're gonna do this by defining that spot. I'm gonna follow the contour that I've already laid down, since it's kind of in this direction. However, there's this little shape here. I'm gonna do this. Oh, we're gonna shade kind of against it, define the shape, and then go back to following it. Boop, boop, boop. And continue down. Looks like this is just a very, very well shaded portion of his leg. Cool. As we've seen, just gonna follow through with the thigh. It looks like there's some defined shapes in here along the calf and what the muscle structures look like. I'm just gonna keep noodling this out. Kind of same idea, finding the edges, creating the dark shadows, and again with using the lines to kind of follow our shapes and define them as we go, making this kind of 2D shading into a 3D implied shape. Kind of follow through and down. I like once I've done a shape on one side, I kind of continue it down just as like a self-reminder sort of, and just to kind of start binding these shapes together. This leg is such a mess. Oh my god, you guys, this is such a mess. It's fine. I say it's fine. However, my brain is also like, oh no. Just attempts by hands. Yeah. It's really fun. I think learning to see is really, really important, and it just makes drawing so much fun, because then instead of just, you don't have to just draw what you see, but also drawing what you feel and learning like the tools to do that is just really wonderful. All right, so we're gonna keep going down. We're gonna deal with the doorstop. Right. So feet. Oh no, sorry, you're gonna deal with me for a little second. So feet. Okay, I'm gonna take that spot. You got a doorstop foot. So again, the way ankles kind of work like a little door hinge, because this little foot kind of swings like this, right? It doesn't really do too much of this. Maybe a little bit of socket movement there. It's kind of where that gets held. Bone is like a whole bunch of other bones in there, but we're gonna keep it simple, and we're gonna do a doorstop wedge. Bam, doorstop wedge. A new sketchbook. You only had it for 3 months. Dang, it's a lot of drawing. It's super awesome. I'll admit, like, after getting a tablet and playing on Procreate, I haven't had a sketchbook in a while, and I kind of miss it. I've just opened up a page and started drawing, but I do miss having very tactile paper to draw with. And I might crack open one of the many sketchbooks I have and deal with it. So, here's our foot. Kind of the same deal. We're going to approach it in kind of... Feet are weird. I still really weirded out by feet. So... toes do this weird thing, right? I like drawing top shapes. This is that kind of that little rectangular wedge, and then this sort of like half potato steak fry right there in the doorstop. And so this is kind of that weird joint that kind of sticks up before it turns into a toe. That's your big toe right there. I'm gonna do the same with this other smaller toe in that. And so it's like this nice kind of fluid tapered little wedge shapes that kind of go around. That's kind of how feet look. I don't know, feet are still a mystery to me. That's something I actually need to practice a little more. And and then we're just gonna do that little wedge up there from all the tendons and ligaments. And that's kind of your foot right there. It's kind of your foot. It's kind of weird. It's weird. So we're gonna apply that practice. Kind of that step/process here. You're gonna do that. This is gonna be kind of where your little digits are gonna start. I'm gonna follow this edge though, and kind of follow it down, just for the sake of following through. Just follow through. When in doubt, just kind of follow through a little bit. And here's your second, and then ends in the toe. So you have that little ridge and then a wedge shape for your toe. He's a very, very pointy toe. That's okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna do the rest of the little tootsies right there. And while this is not going to be, I haven't done all the foot, like little tarsals inside this toe. You've registered that it's a foot, and that's kind of the more important part right now. And we're going to follow through in the pads of your feet. And so, look at your foot. Just gotta look at your foot, right? There's like the front pads, and then it kind of goes down into the bottom pad, and here are your little toes, right? This kind of follows through that shape. So we're gonna draw this little pad right here, a little meaty bit, which is right there. I'm gonna follow through and hit the heel. Bam. And I like doing these angles and changes because going from a curve to a sharp point and down creates a really cool. It just does a really cool thing with my eyes. I like looking at it. It's a shape that I like, and so I'm gonna use that because that's kind of what I'm edging for. No, actually, looking at it, it seems that the angle pushes down into the ground because that is how the foot actually works. And then we're gonna go back and kind of define some meaty shapes again. Doing the same thing with our contour shading, kind of starting from where the line is and shading in. That way you're using the lines you set down instead of working against it. Feet are very wedge-like. Yes, door stoppers. It's Hall of the 4th month. Still, like a few months of filling sketchbook cell is really, really impressive. That's super cool. Quite a feat. Thanks, Captain Sardonic. I appreciate the pun. I need to break away from my habit of heavy referencing in my digital art. Push myself a bit more. Yeah, and like, it's important to make the choice and then play with it and then do a different one. Like, choose to use reference, choose not to use reference. But like, knowing that that choice is going to branch out into a different experience, and it's okay, and it's going to be weird, and it takes time to feel it out and feel like what you're trying to do and what inspires you and what's interesting. Exploring with art is not about necessarily getting it right, but it's about finding something new, and that can be scary, and it's hard, and it's like it gets frustrating, but it's important to remember that it's about finding getting through it to find what's interesting, and that's where that joy exists. That's where the best part of drawing exists. And then let's see, so we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it again and draw the feet right here. And finish this out. So we're gonna do that guideline again and follow through. And here's gonna be your wedge, and then your toes are gonna be there. So you're gonna do the big toe. I'm gonna look back at this model instead of just drawing nilly-willy what I think feet should be, because that didn't turn out too well. So we're gonna look back, reference the line that we're gonna try and follow, and do it again. And there's your foot. We're gonna follow through. Gonna do the heel straight down to the ground, which is kind of cool. It's kind of what meaty shapes and gravities kind of do with each other. And I'm gonna do that line right here. And we're going to shade in. And again, with this line here, I'm going to shade in. And there's your shape. Kind of cool. And kind of following through, looks like they want this form to be shaded, so I'm actually going to follow kind of what it's doing. I don't know. So we know. So because I have this guideline, this kind of be where my contour shading is going to follow, but there's also a shape here. So I'm going to use these lines to kind of define what the shape is doing in this space. All the way over. And then the rest of it kind of goes here. Flattens out. There you go. Oh, it's really cool, Osborne. Mixture of digital and traditional art. Did the outlines in Photoshop, printed it with low transparency, and then used the Castell Polychromos pens to color. That's really cool. I love Faber-Castells. They're really great. That's super awesome. All right, and that's feet. Yay, feet. I'm going to go back to this other leg. And this is the part where I always have problems. Like, I also always kind of wrestle with this part of myself going, this isn't correct, even though I measured it. But you know what? We're gonna roll with this, and I might actually even go outside these guidelines. All right, so I'm gonna start with this side because it's front, and it's gonna be easier to work with the rest of it once I've drawn this first part in. it's going to do the calves. So it's actually going this way. It's a really cool shape because the leg actually does this curve in because the muscles are wrapping around. Pretty awesome. So we're going to do that little guide right there. We're going to do this guide right here. And so we're going to, again, follow this because we know that this 2x4, we're going to look at a 2x4, this is how this 2x4 is sitting there, right? A 2x4 and a wedge behind it. So we're going to assume everything's going to be following this line, and so that's why this contour is going to go this way. And maybe a little bit like that. That little shape's kind of a little weird. We're gonna work with it. And then same with this shape here. Again, following that contour line that I'd set up and defining the shape as I'm going. Boom, 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 boom. There you go. And there. And so this is kind of where that weird triangle bit is, and which is why I'm going to shift the shading. So there's a little bit of shading, looks like, right there. We're going to shift that shading this way, inwards, because that's kind of, the shading is kind of on that spot of the wedge right there, and that's why it has to be a different direction. Otherwise, it's going to be incredibly flat, and it's not going to be interesting, and it's not going to show that a person's leg is disappearing off the edge, I guess. So boom, boom. And we're going to do a bit more shading up here, looks like. Cool. I think that's good enough right there. Then we're going to continue to the back. Looks like there's a bit of shading on this shape. So I'm going to follow it just a little bit to the back. And looks like the thigh is pretty, it's pretty meaty. So I'm not going to worry too much about defining a little muscle, because if you think about it, it's just going to be one slab of muscle that has fully extended over the top, which has made a very smooth surface without too much shading going on. But we're still going to do some of the contour lining. And it's kind of, if I imagine it, this 2x4 is going to be sitting like this, right? So we're going to follow it this way. So it's like the shading is kind of be more like this. So we're going to do the shading this way and kind of accommodate for the way the muscles are going to move and the way it kind of slouches in. And that's just from observing a lot, references, drawing, just practicing a lot will help you learn to just kind of fudge it a bit, make it more interesting. Understanding how these shapes exist in space will help make these decisions a lot easier. Which is why reference. When in doubt, sometimes go back and reference for fun. Reference or practice. It's fun to just look and then learn something new out of it. Like anytime you're like, actually, I have no idea what this looks like. Let's go check it out. Use some reference, and you'll be very, very, very surprised. So we're gonna go back to this shoulder. Meaty slab. Yes, meaty slabs. That's humans for you. So, kind of at the head. I have a feeling that the back of the skull is going to be kind of right here. I'm going to dictate it with the box because it's a little more interesting when it's an angle. And so the neck will probably be starting here and going down. And the second part is going to be about there and connecting to the shoulder. And same with this, since we've drawn the muscle in the neck is actually going to be here and down. Now you're hungry. Sorry, Lauren. Just eat a lot of veggies tonight, right? Right? All right, cool. So we have this neck. And again, the neck is also it's one of those tricky things that looks like a cylinder, but it absolutely isn't. It's kind of maybe wedgy right in the front, but it's still a freaking rectangle. It is still a 2x2, so we're going to deal with this. So it's a flat surface with a bit of a curve. I'm going to shift this camera kind of over here as I do this neck on the side. So it's kind of that middle point right there. We're going to have a bit of the muscle that comes in right here. So this is actually what I see. These are the different lines. And let's see how, because it's holding a head up, it's actually ending this way so that it can hold the rest of the head up. It's weird. It makes sense. Trust me, it just makes sense. And so it's like this slab of muscles, with one side going this way, and the next side doing this, sort of. If that makes sense. Oh no! Goodbye, Osborne. Have a good night. Sleep well. There's something frightening in that a lot when you talk about practicing a lot. I've drawn ever since I was a kid, and so it just, practice doesn't feel like practice. It's just, I just do it. I simply just do it, and it is frightening when it's something that you just don't simply do all the time and becomes, for some it's a big challenge, right? Like a lot of these things that I had to learn were still challenging, but it was also a thing that I just simply did. It's just very strange. It's just very strange. It is daunting and it is scary. It can be frightening. But start small, start doodling. Like, doodles are the best because you capture the most essential, simple things very, very quickly. Like hand shark. Like, what the hell is a hand shark? It's simple. It's simple. It's just a hand shark. It's great. So this is incredibly daunting. But again, everything that I've tried to go back to is to simplify. Always simplify. Everything's a 2x4. Everything's a potato wedge. Making big, complex things into smaller, doable things is just kind of that process to making the full picture. It takes a while, it takes some time, it takes practice, but it all pays off in the end when it all comes together. It just does, and it's really fun. It's really, really cool. It's a really cool feeling. Like, I'm so glad a lot of you drew hands. It's really cool. It's really awesome. It's so cool. Because hands are like the worst. And next will be faces. Okay, cool. We're gonna finish up with this neck and the hair, and we'll be wrapping. Thank you so much for joining me. Y'all are great. I'm gonna do. So it looks like there's this immense shadow from the muscle, and we're gonna cross over to there. And so because I've set this up already, we know that this is gonna be simply that. I'm gonna just take that edge and we're just gonna run with it the whole way. And then we also know it kind of follows there, but we're gonna define this muscle because we know it's kind of there. It's kind of where we're gonna revisit this kind of muscle structure right there. So we're gonna do this into the spine and define it from the rest. And this is where also knowing the muscle is kind of fun because it helps guide your shading a little bit. Makes it a little interesting. Let's do that right there. And that's going to be the neck. And then we're going to continue down. Because the shoulder is where it is, it looks like the scapula is kind of living at an angle right here. So we're just going to follow that a little because it seems to be disappearing around the edge. And so we're going to use the contour shading to show the rest of this figure kind of falling off the edge. Kind of like a sphere. Like it's a sphere. It's a sphere. And there's going to be some shading right here at the bottom where that scapula is disappearing. And then I like the shading bits right here to show the flat of the back and just to emphasize where the shape is going. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do some little filler in right here. This is very no nonsense. This is very nonsense shading because I'm not actually paying attention to anatomy. It's just there to balance the figure out. I never know what I want to draw. Yeah, same. I try to like save some photos that I see either on Twitter or some inspiration blogs for later, and so I just wind up forgetting them. I have like a file on my Google Drive that I kind of reference as like inspiration pictures, things that I liked, or you know something an artist did. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and just kind of save it for later, and like maybe I can do my take on it, or like I like drawing trinkets from D&D. That's a fun one I always wind up doing. Dead stuff, magical items, ice brands, whatever. Like, points of inspiration, like finding inspiration is really hard because it kind of depends on the mood that you're in, and that can change like every day, all the time. So yeah, yes, I agree. I like going to D&D sometimes, like character creation and item creation. Because I'm invested in creating this character. Well, what does their backpack look like? I love drawing inventory. Inventory is really fun. And then I'll be like, I don't know what dried fruit looks like. Let's go look it up. Or I don't know what rations would look like. Or I think I was playing a cleric, and I had to go look up what an incense holder looked like, and just drew stuff. Like I wound up going on some really cool reference hunts and finding other things too. So you'd be very surprised. And D&Ds are really... RPGs are a fun place because you're invested in the character, and then that kind of drives you to go, well, what would my character actually carry, right? It's kind of important. Inventories are fun, yes. So you can draw the rest. Hair. We're not just going to go, draw a mop of hair. Hair is fun and very difficult. Well, it can be... It's hard to know where to start, really. And looking at this model, it seems that there is a place where the hair starts. There seems to be a hairline right there. That's a good place to start, the hairline. So hair has its own texture, but at the same time...
It's a little off.
off. Ha-ha! Ha! There we go. There you go. Fixed it. So this is the hairline. And so hair is difficult because hair is a strand. It's a line with its own texture, but it's also falling over something. So good thing we've practiced contour shading. So we're just going to do a really quick one where, like, okay, here's like that first. This is kind of where it's gonna go, right? And we're gonna follow through with hairlines. And this is a lot of just practice and learning what hair does, what these shapes look like. I'm gonna say, okay, so I'm just gonna build my own hair. So I'm gonna say that this hair is gonna have a bit of a curl and a wave to it at the end. So we're gonna take this shape and kind of work it around what we've got here as these guidelines. So if a hair starts here, it would do this and that. And same here. But when it reaches the bottom, it kind of parts a little bit right there, right? So I'm not gonna draw every strand, but I'm gonna draw some of the curls where it matters. It's kind of what matters, like the big defining bits of hair is what I'm gonna worry about. I'm gonna do maybe, I don't know, it's gonna do that strand there and that strand there. And kind of do a little bit over. We know we draw the skull there, but the hair is gonna always sit over a skull. It doesn't just like kind of plaster to itself. Unless you want it to, that's fine too. Gonna do that little curl. And sometimes I just don't fill it in, sometimes I do. I'm gonna do the outside a little bit, kind of do little wisps. Do that, and kind of make these... Hair is really fun just to practice, and after a while you kind of feel where that flow goes. And the thing with hair, shading hair is a pain, because it's kind of very reverse intuitive. I usually like to shade towards a highlight, and the highlights always kind of take place right at the curl up. So we're going to do this really quick. Probably something I'll revisit in the future. I'll probably be drawing more things with hair, and we'll kind of go through how I made these decisions, where to practice, what to practice. And do that here as well. And kind of carry that over. There's the rest of the hair. Kind of that. And we're gonna call this done. Thousands of hair. So yeah, thousands of hairs. And so you're not gonna draw every single strand, but instead, hair is actually kind of this. You draw them in kind of sections, and so I like to draw some lines as like, this is where I like these lines, and then I kind of pick out where each section is, right? And depending on where the lines are going, your shading is going to be in the concave bits leading up to the highlight of the curl right there. It's kind of generally what I follow when it comes to hair. Yeah, hair is its own personality and will definitely define character. Hair, hands, like besides face, like facial structure and character, like that's its own thing, but also hair, hands, oh man, posture, ugh, it's so complicated. And yeah, there you go, there's your figure. There you go, dissected, kinda, sort of. I mean, this thing looks ridiculous, right? But we did this together in the simple step of a single line. And I didn't even use the whole line, but what matters is that as a whole, this is where the energy goes. It's all about seeing energy and the feeling. It's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of drawing feelings in this. So I'm gonna wrap up. If you guys have any questions in the next like 5 minutes or so, we'd love to hear them. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really, really cool. This is great. I had to like put into words things that are very intuitive to me, and it was like a really lovely experience. So thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you drew anything during chat, during this episode, just post it in the Inklings channel in our Discord. I would love to see your stuff. I love seeing other people's art. I don't care if you like, even if you think it looks bad, like I would love to see it. Like it's still really cool that you've brought something to life and put it on paper. Like that's important. And I would love it if you could share that. I would really love to. Don't leave. I'm here, sort of. Yes, and as Anna said, next show is Wind Down at 5 p.m. on Wednesday at a new time. So join us before Worlds Beyond. Any questions, ideas, fun stuff to share, hang out with Anna at Wind Down, 5 p.m. Yeah, if you have any questions, also just like drop it in the Inklings channel. I have that on notifications, so I will see it, definitely. You know, you don't always respond. I will definitely see it. So I'll be signing off. You can find me. Who am I? Wait, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Steph. She, her. You can find me at Starfruit Junkie on Twitch and Twitter. Check out my Patreon at StephMHC. You have the next 3 days to, if you pledge at any level on my Patreon, you will receive a pair of really cool stickers that I designed. Go check it out. Give me a follow even if you can't pledge today. Like, just give me a follow. I'll post some cool stuff. I'll probably be releasing it at some point. And I'm probably going to be releasing my prints pretty soon. So give me a follow. I'm definitely going to be posting updates there. Yeah. 5 p.m. Monday? Wednesday? Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. Y'all are great. I'll see you next week on Inklings. Have a good day.